welcome back to another edition of Checkers, Wreckers, and What the Heckers. My name is Chad Bearden. I am a country music artist, content creator, and NASCAR super fan. Joined as always by my incredible co host. Please allow me to introduce them to you. Straight out of Ohio, where hair is high and expectations are low, this man showed up with a hairstyle so legendary it should have its own pit crew. As a VIP coordinator for the Haas Factory team, he somehow manages drunk fans, over-caffeinated drivers, and that glorious mane that has been defying gravity and good judgment for years. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the follicle phenom, Rick Kojan.
What's up? Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me back. And I will continue to try and do better and grow my hair longer. That's all I've got. That's all I've got.
Oh, born and raised in North Carolina. This man brings more judgment than a jury full of ex-girlfriends and swings his opinions harder than a gavel in a courtroom drama. As a part of Hendrick Motorsports, he lays down the law in the garage with a kind of authority that would make a real Supreme Court justice ask for a recess. All rise for Chris, the Supreme Court Justice.
Swear
Here
us
we are,
in.
boys. Swear us in. Here we are.
Swear us in.
Listen, glad to be here, guys.
NASCAR started today, boys.
NASCAR started today.
We'll see what life is going to look like for however long this drags out and how many appeals we get and who wins and who loses. And
3-year process right here.
At least, who knows? Unless I still think at some point they just got to settle, right? Somebody's got to settle.
That's what everybody thought it was gonna happen anyway, but I guess not.
Didn't get there.
We'll see.
We didn't get there.
But
all right, who we got with us tonight?
Listen, we're not wasting all night talking about that because Rick loves when we talk about that, and
oh my god,
we're not going to get into it tonight. But we're going to have some fun tonight. We have a great guest with us, so let's get him in here and let's do some talking.
Yeah,
as a proud Penn State alumni who is built like he's still waiting for his name to be called in the NFL draft, this man went from hitting running backs to hitting punchlines on ESPN radio. And these days, he breaks down college football on TV like it's a crime scene, delivering analysis so brutal it should come with pads and a waiver. Ladies and gentlemen, strap in. Reggie Walker Jr. is in the house.
Hey, that's. I'm gonna have to file that introduction away.
We've said that a bunch of times.
I need that.
Yes.
It's really good.
That.
Yes, you can put that in your bio there and all your platforms.
He is quite the lyricist.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get that one. We're gonna have to make sure we get your publishing on that
one. We'll see what we can do.
Chad, why don't you cue him up? He's got the white out in the background. Why don't you cue him up with a little "We are Penn State"?
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Look, he's got the dance going. He's got the dance going.
You had it right there. Come on. Let's get up on that. Let's get up on that Big Ten.
All right. Well, let's all right. Here's what I want to do. I want to go through your story, Reggie, yep. and tell people your story, who you are, what you do. And then I want to spend some time talking some college football with you, if that's cool.
Yeah, let's do it. That's always that's a place of passion for me for sure. And you know, it kind of started as getting the opportunity. I always wanted to play in college. It's funny, like a lot of people have like this, I want to play in the pros mentality, but like as a kid, my mentality was I want to play in college. And then I kind of figured I'd figure it out from there. That was kind of always my mindset.
So tell me about high school ball. How did high school ball go for you? How did you start getting recruited and all that? How did that process go for you?
Yeah, it was really interesting because my dad is retired Navy. So I didn't start playing tackle football, ironically, until ninth grade. I'd never played any kind of organized tackle football until ninth grade. And it really was one of those things where I got convinced by my friends, like, yeah, you should play football. I was like, all right, cool, no problem. I was a hooper, like I was a basketball guy. But like I'm under 6 feet tall. So there's an end very quickly when you're not that tall in basketball, unless you're really, really good. I'm not Allen Iverson. So we're going to move past that real fast. Um, my first 2 years of high school was on the West Coast in California, and I was really learning how to play. But I had great coaches, and with the success that the program had and the talent we played against, I had to learn fast and grow quickly, and then migrate to the East Coast in Virginia. My dad got a transfer in the military, and I had to just trying to keep balling out. And ironically, um, my process was interesting, and it wasn't. Everything kind of moved really fast. Um, the most interesting thing is like I had to make a decision about where I wanted to go, and a lot of the math for me came down to like where I wanted to play and like the environment. So like Syracuse was something that I really liked because I wanted a big school, but I didn't want a humongous city. I didn't want like there's no like I don't think you could have. Everybody's got a price, right? But there's not kids get paid now. I didn't back then, but there is no amount of money you could have given me to go play college football at USC down in downtown LA. Like I would not. That's not something that ever interested me. A place like Austin, Texas, probably not. Like these are larger cities where there's a lot going on. Like the one thing I knew real fast, I need to go somewhere where I could play ball and go to school, but force me to kind of find a way to sit my behind down. I was a little bit of a busybody. I wanted to kind of be in the mix with everything, and the last thing you want to do is be in the mix in a city like LA or Chicago, something like that, Northwestern. And it just didn't fit my personality, and I kind of knew that. So that's why I kept everything to bigger schools with smaller locales around them, or more college town type vibes. And then you add in like you start looking at different places. Syracuse, I didn't, I started getting wiser, and I was like, if I am good enough, I don't want to play on AstroTurf before I go to the NFL because it might mess your knees up and you can't play as long in the pro. Like all these different things start running through your head because you hear one guy that you're watching play say something and you're like, oh, I should start thinking about that. Like you're that guy or something. And so that's kind of the main way the journey happened. I will tell you this. When it came to be known that I was going to Penn State at my high school, everybody was like, wait, you're going where? Because we weren't having a lot of success on the field as a team. So I think a lot of people I know a lot of people were pretty surprised about where I was going to end up.
And so number one, where were you playing your junior, senior year of high school? And how did that recruit process go for you going to Penn State and choosing Penn State?
Yeah, I was in Northern Virginia. I was at Woodbridge High School. And it was it was almost like I don't want to say a hidden process because like nobody was hiding anything, but it was just pretty quiet. Now I was, weirdly, there were guys around me that, in other schools, like we played against a school in Hilton High School that had like, I think that one year in my same class, they had like 9 guys that went D1 or something crazy like that. So we weren't winning against those kinds of teams. So the question marks were there. And I think a lot of people didn't realize the talent level. And then the process was kind of interesting because the main thing I remember about it, and I love telling the story, is like my mom was like one of those people that she was just like, hey, you guys, you and your dad will figure that, whatever. And then one day she said something about, she just, she's like, hey, Joe Paterno has a 90 whatever percent graduation. I don't even know what the number was. It was more than 97. I know that percent graduation rate. And I kind of looked at my dad when she said it, and I was like, well, I guess I'll be going to Penn State. Like that was kind of the end of the debate because mom had weighed in and made a decision really for me. Look, there were no bad options, right? You're talking about Penn State, you're talking about Syracuse. I was looking at Tennessee as well. So like there were no bad options.
Well, Tennessee
But
could be a bad option.
Oh,
says
hater.
Mr. Tide himself, right? You knew that was
Hater.
coming. I was I don't know if you guys noticed. I've been trying to avoid saying that the whole time because I knew Mr. Tide was going to weigh in on that one.
Of course he was. Of course he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like I mean, I won't say it on this show, but there's an eagle that's flying around that some people like, but I won't mess with him too much about the old war eagle down there on the plains.
Yeah.
Iron Bowl. Was that what it was? Iron Bowl?
The Iron Bowl, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
guess what? We still got the W. we play we're playing
You're
SEC.
just
Well, not
barely
only
getting
did you
them,
get,
just like you're gonna just barely get in the 12-team playoff.
well, I got to give him credit. Anytime you go down and win at Jordan Hare at night, that's something. And by the way, for the people at home, it is not Jordan Hare, it's Jordan Hare. You have to pronounce it properly. And the other thing that the Tide found down at Jordan Hare this past weekend was they found a running game. Jam Miller looked really, really good. And I think that's the key for them going forward. Can they sustain that? But I digress.
Yeah. So what years was this that you were going to leaving high school, headed to Penn State, and then playing at Penn State?
Yeah, graduated high school in June of 2000. So it would have been 99 was my senior year, my senior high school football season. Again, wasn't a great season. We didn't make the playoffs, which was very unfortunate. We had a ton of talent. I think we just, in a lot of ways, didn't put it all together. I had a middle linebacker. I have to shout out Daryl Wilson. That dude, I've never played with a guy that could find the football the way he could at the middle linebacker spot and get guys on the ground. That guy was unbelievable. I don't know that I've played with a guy that had a knack for just making plays the way that guy did. One of my favorite teammates ever. Obviously, I loved all my guys I played with in college, but Daryl is probably the favorite teammate I've had ever.
Yeah. And what was I mean, obviously there was since then has been tons of controversy
Yeah.
around that time at Penn State. But what was the culture like for you there when you were there?
You know, it was interesting. The one thing I always talk about and I always loved about that place was like guys figured out like coming in the door. And I don't think it was like, I never saw where it was like there were any assignments, but like the OGs would just grab a young guy and be like, I got him. Right. And just kind of try to show you the way, whether that was guys that were like, high performing guys. Like I remember one time I was like, I think it was my freshman year. It was like in the spring. I'm just like in my room on like a Friday, just kind of chilling out. And all of a sudden my phone rings and it's Michael Haynes, who eventually was a first round pick of the Chicago Bears, led the Big Ten in sacks in 2002. I can go all the way down the list. And he's like, hey, you're with me tonight. And I was just like, he was like, I'm going out. I was going out with him. And it was really more about like, hey, you're one of the young guys. I'm going to look out for you. I'm going to show you how to go have a good time, but be smart about it, be safe with it. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of, cultural things. Coach Paterno was very much the type of coach that expected us to kind of police ourselves in a lot of ways. I would always laugh because every Friday or really Saturday after a game, like his favorite line was stay out of the papers, right? Because he was old school newspaper guy. And he would just tell us, stay out of the papers, right? Which basically meant don't get in trouble. That's really all he was saying is don't get in trouble. Don't end up in the newspaper. And it's ironic because obviously what ended up happening with my post-football life, right, my career, I go into the media. And our main phrase in media spaces has always been, don't be a news story. Well, I laugh every time I hear that because I'm like, I've been hearing that since a freshman year of college from a guy like Joe Paterno, who was, one of the ultimate people in terms of the focus on what you can be in your life. I remember one time I got called into his office. I won't really get into all the details of why, but it wasn't for a good reason. I was called in the principal's office, as it were. And we had a nice conversation. And the last thing he said to me, he goes, listen, you don't have to play a down of football, but you're going to graduate. And like, guys, I'm telling you, you want your soul to leave your body? That moment happened for me when he said that because the only thing in my head was I'll never get to put on the pads on Saturday again, but he's going to put me through this like rigorous whatever to make sure I graduate. So needless to say, I never found myself called into his office again because I knew better than that, which was very ironic because, and I think you guys will understand and love this story all at the same time. You're talking about a man who was in his mid 70s at that time, who also, you go in his office after you pass through his three secretaries. Yes, he had three secretaries. There were no computers. There's no computer on his desk or either of his desks. No computers, none of that. But when you sat there and you sat across from him at his desk and you either got read the riot act or he told you were doing the greatest thing ever. But the reality of the situation was you go through that process and you sit across from a man like that. Like I can't tell you how many little things that he would say on a football field that stick with me to this day. And then the other thing is his ability to say simple things that would stick. I remember one time we're playing. This is 2002. This is in the midst of Larry Johnson running for like 1,000,000 yards or whatever it was. And Coach Paterno said, like, I think it was like the second or third play of the game, Larry ripped off like a 12-yard run. And Coach Paterno walked over to the offensive coordinator and he goes, they can't tackle him. Keep giving them the ball. And at that point, it was like, we may not throw the ball for like a week. Like he didn't care. You do not throw the football. I should probably clean that up and say it better in my typical Joe Paterno voice. Hey, Franny, keep giving it to him. They can't tackle it. Give him the ball.
That's awesome.
Outstanding.
That's how it goes, and that's how he, but he had an ability. He could walk over to any of the coaches on the staff. Jay Paterno was also on the staff, his son, but he could walk over to any coach and say something simple. If he liked the matchup, we got to get the ball to Brian Johnson. I don't know what the play call would be, but next thing you know, it's like a 40-yard completion. Like he just saw so much football. He could call a play without calling a play, and get exactly what you needed for the team in that moment. He was just a savant. And look, the way it ended for him in State College and at Penn State as the head coach is what it is. But a lot of, he did so many really, really good things for a lot of people. It just hurt the way it happened. It was very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, I was going to ask you as a guy who
From
played
the inside. Yeah.
right, a guy who played for him and a guy who covers stories similar to this and not to that extent, but how do you balance that? How do you view that? How do you view a legacy for a guy like that who, football wise, no question was one of the greatest to ever do it?
Iconic.
Yes. So many wins, so how do you balance the two? And, how do you sift through to know how much weight to put on one side or the other?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Number one, it's hard to do. I think the main thing, what I try to do, is lean into what we do know specifically. What exactly do we know? And we know that there's been a conviction. We know that Jerry Sandusky is in prison. We know that there were conversations with the police over time periods. And we know that, to use the phrase that was reported up by Coach Paterno, those are all things that we know. After that is where, obviously people can decipher who to blame and all those things. And look, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I try to, in those scenarios and all scenarios, I don't care what the situation is in the world, I try to go off of what we know exactly that happened and give people that information and then go from there. And I think the hard part in that situation, those scenarios, many of these scenarios, is we don't, as the outside public and or the media, we don't generally get a step-by-step, blow-by-blow of every single aspect or every single fact of these things. And I think is where it gets so difficult because, yes, the court of public opinion will always render a decision, but the court of public opinion oftentimes renders a decision based on partial information. That's not to say that people are malicious in doing so. They're going off what they know. And as you guys know, with everything going on in so many aspects of life right now, you look at what's going on with NASCAR, won't get too deep into that. But we don't all know, right? The world doesn't know every step in the process, but there are assumptions being made. There are people deciphering based off of part of the information. And I think that's where things can get a little dangerous, get lost in the shuffle, is a lot of times the verdict is rendered based on a half or a quarter or a third of the testimony. And we don't know that. And so as it relates to Coach Paterno, getting back to that, I try to lean into also like personal experience, right? What was his effect or impact around me? What did I see from him on a consistent basis? What did I know? And I can tell you the wildest thing about all of it, and I've had this conversation with plenty of my teammates. We were like, when this stuff came out, we were like, what happened? Where? Like, it shocked us to the core because we had heard no rumblings of it. And again, I'm not suggesting that whatever happened or didn't happen. I just know I hadn't heard about it, which is, to me, I think the wildest part of it is because, you're in a place like that at a part of a college athletic program, not even the full department, just a team in particular. You're in and out of the same building every day. You're running into the same people. You would think something like that would come out if it were, but many of us, the guys that I've talked to, never heard or saw any of it. Now, does that mean we weren't looking for it? Probably part of it, right? Does that mean the timing of whenever stuff would happen just didn't involve us? Of course. And I always say this, if somebody's doing something nefarious, 9 times out of 10, they're doing everything they can to hide it anyway. So they're not going to do it in plain sight so that everybody knows. So that's part of, one of the things I kind of keep in the back of my mind at all times is they're not going to tell you that they're doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate, I know that's a weird position to be in and have to talk to. So I appreciate you speaking to that.
Let me tell you, the weirdest part about that, guys, and we can talk about this part all day, was being a Penn State guy, but working full-time on the production side at ESPN at the time, helping produce shows that are talking about this very subject.
True.
As these things are happening. And the wildest thing about it is I was getting text messages from like my friends that went to school there, not athletes, just that I knew from school, saying, tell ESPN to stop. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you letting them do this? And I'm going, whoa. I am not the guy that decides what goes on ESPN. I work here, but I do not have that kind of juice.
Right.
So that was probably the most difficult part of the whole thing, is because you're getting push and pull on both sides. There were people that I worked with at the company that were sort of tapping me on the shoulder, asking for my teammates' phone numbers to try to get them on shows or on camera or whatever. And that's where I had to step myself, right, and just say, hey, whoa, that's a line I'm not crossing. If you want to go source people, you do that. But yes, I do work here, but my cell phone and the contacts in it do not belong to you. So that was a very awkward time for me, because I was at a place in my career where I was starting to, really kind of get some juice in the company, as it were, and really starting to make my own way in terms of being able to run some shows and building out and producing shows and things like that. And then all of a sudden this happens and I'm getting it from both sides. That was, I'm telling you, there was a stretch of time where I was just like, if my phone goes off, I'm not even going to look at it, because it's either somebody trying to get to something or somebody trying to tell me to tell the bosses at ESPN to stop doing something. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of power. And the reality of the situation is it was news. I can't, and that is part of the job of ESPN, is to report the news and provide the information and perspective as they get it.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you got there. So you have your college football career at Penn State. You spend 4 years there, I'm assuming. And then you graduate. There's not a path to the NFL. correct. You can correct me anytime.
Yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So not a path to the NFL. So how do you get into like media, and how do you make your way to
Yeah.
ESPN?
Well, let's go backwards for a second, and
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna throw a guy under the bus.
Uh-oh.
One of my
Watch
teammates,
out,
Michael
Ricky.
No, I
Robinson.
hope it's you, Chad.
No, it's Michael Robinson. I'm gonna throw him under the bus. I love him, by the way. Does a great job on NBC, NFL Network. He's great on television. Um, there was a time in school. Well, let me go back further than that, and I'll get back to the Mike point. I went into school. My plan was to be a sports agent. Right, the whole plan was I was going to go to Penn State. I was going to play football. I was going to play in the NFL for 10 years. Then I was going to jump to the other side and be a sports agent, make a whole bunch of money, retire at 45, and never work another day of my life.
Solid. That's
Sounds
like
like a
Chad.
great
That's like
plan.
Chad's plan. It's perfect.
What's that part? Chad, let me hold
Still
something, by the
still
way.
the plan. Still the plan.
Let me hold
Hey,
something.
he's not 45 yet. We still got time. Go ahead.
And he's already got all the money, so let me hold something.
Oh.
He did not like that one.
Oh, quiet. Crickets.
Yeah, real
Yeah.
quiet. That means that money's there. That's what that means.
Yeah, right.
So, the interesting story is I took one of the classes I took early in my college career was a labor and industrial relations class, which obviously going to be an agent, kind of need to know about that stuff. I was like, this is boring. I can't, like, I'm not going to sit here and read contracts and I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So I had to find something else that would allow me to stay around sports. And I found media. And one of the things I kind of learned about myself was that I was always the guy that was listening to the guys calling games. I was paying attention to what they were saying. Why does it work? Why does it not work? What's happening? What are the rules? Like, that was always my thing. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe this media thing is a good idea for me. So I go talk to some people. Eventually, even with shout out to DF Don Farrell and Todd Kolka, the academic guys at Penn State. They on the football side, they helped me figure out the transition of majors because it's a process. Then you got to be careful with eligibility and all those things. But anyway, those guys were awesome. And I found media, and so I said, okay, I'm going to switch and do this. And right around that time, there was a little bit of a development in the communications department. They wanted to build out a TV show. It was called In the Game, PSU In the Game. And the idea was they were going to build it around Michael Robinson. And they were going to have these auditions for other people, but Mike was going to do the show. So the audition day comes around, and I had told those guys, hey, I can show up and just kind of help with auditions. No big deal. Mike never showed up. So I did every audition. And then they said, well, we don't think we're going to get Mike, but we think you're going to be pretty good. Why don't you do it? So shout out to my teammate, Michael Robinson. He's the one that really got me started by not showing up.
That's cool. That's cool.
And sort of from there, we did that. And then after college, I wish I had an awesome story, guys, but the simplest way I can describe how I landed at ESPN, I kept applying. And I think at some point somebody said, I'm sick of looking at this resume from this football player that flamed out probably. Somebody interview him, and if he's good, we'll hire him. If he's terrible, we never have to deal with seeing this resume again. And that's really how it happened. I get up there, I interview.
You had to go to Connecticut for that?
I had to go to Connecticut for that. And the interesting thing is, guys, the one thing I will never forget in my life, they asked me, they asked a lot of the regular work questions, but there were a few sort of sports trivia type questions. I am mad to this day because they asked me who was the second overall pick in the 2003 NBA draft. Any guesses? LeBron was number one, by the way.
Second round pick, 2003
Number two pick
NBA
overall.
draft.
Number two pick overall. First round, number two pick.
Yep.
LeBron was one.
LeBron was one. Okay.
AD? I don't know. Oh.
We'll leave it alone. So I'll explain it. I'm going to give you some other names that were in that draft. Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, just to name a few. I said Carmelo Anthony. Most people would believe in that answer.
Wasn't he 3?
He was 3.
Yeah.
Darko Milicic was number 2.
Yeah, who's gonna know that guy?
He was the project in Detroit. And what bothers me about it is I remember right when they drafted him, I remember the conversation with people and I went, hey, Sean Prince was just the Eastern Conference playoffs MVP. They didn't need a small forward, aka Carmelo Anthony. So I had justified the pick, right, wrong, or indifferent. I had justified the pick in just a conversation with my friends. I go to ESPN in an interview setting and screw it up.
Hmm.
I will never forget that as long as I live. That haunts me to this day because I'm mad. That's the one question I got wrong. That's just me being a competitor, I guess. But that's really how it kind of worked itself out. Did well in the interview, moved to Connecticut, and it was a great stretch for me. I was in Connecticut for almost 6 years. 3 of those years, I was graciously able to be a part of the group that was College Game Day, and did that traveling circus, guys, because it's literally a circus, for 3 seasons, and it was the best 3 years of my life, up until I got to the point to where I am now, which is where I'm calling games. I still put game day right up there, because it's not like I've gotten to call something like an Iron Bowl yet. But hopefully down the line that happens. But it certainly is up there amongst the experiences of my life.
You got some hardware while you were there too, right?
Got a little hardware, picked up a couple of Emmy Awards, and that's always fun when you can do it as a team, and do your part individually. That's really, really cool. Been to the Sports Emmys a couple of times in New York, and it's an interesting night, man. And like, you know, you can do a lot of things in life and in a career, but like sometimes there's things that just you just realize this means I'm doing something right. And to be able to have a couple of those things in the house when you walk in, it definitely makes you feel good on a regular basis.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing now. Tell folks what you're doing now and how you ended up doing that.
Yeah, man, 12 years at ESPN. And unfortunately, because like I said, I was 6 years in Bristol. And then I decided, and the timing worked. I had relocated and worked on our ESPNU, because I wanted to really focus on what was going on in the college space. So I had relocated to Charlotte in the Charlotte office and was doing some more stuff there and helping out with some of our high school coverage with recruiting and all those things. And then in 2017, some reshuffling happened, and they basically got rid of studio programming, studio shows at ESPNU, which so then my position, my role was eliminated. Well, there was a decision to make: go back to Bristol in a different role, or kind of step out on my own. And in that process, I said, we all have to have these, right? Like these moments, right, where you got to make some decisions. You fork in the road. Do you go straight or left or right, whatever? And yes, I did say go straight because some people go straight at a fork in the road. That's not good, but some people still do it. And for me, I really was able to look in the mirror and say, hey, man, you've always wanted to call games. Now's your chance to go do it. And so in 2017, with no full-time job, I started calling high school games on the radio. And when I tell you there was no money, there was no money. I'd been smart about some things, so I was okay. And so that's kind of how I started to build. So in 2017, I was doing high school games on the radio for pennies and nickels. 2018, I was able to do radio as a direct analyst, what you call a voice of type analyst, for a Division two school. Same school every week against whoever they played. Second guy, let's do it, whatever. I did that in 18. Then 19, we jumped to D1, which was the FCS level, Gardner Webb. I was a radio guy there for a couple of years. And then as that was happening, I was getting opportunities mainly at Charlotte, the 49ers, to do some TV, and kind of took that and was able to catapult that into where now I'm able to do that on a regular basis, not just for the school, meaning Charlotte. Now that they're in the American, the American Athletic Conference, that's the old name. Now it's just the American. All of their talent rights, if you will, are controlled by ESPN, the network, because that's their media partner. So I get assigned via ESPN on a game-to-game basis. So I get to go do games, and it's fun for me. It's a process, right? You, as a player, you go through the process of learning a game plan during the week. Now, as an analyst on TV, my job is to process and understand what game plans might be throughout the week for both teams, and then be able to articulate that as the game plays itself out. And so it's fun to study, right? You get to study two teams every week and study them and study them and study them. Now, the cool part is you get to them, 2 or 3 times in a year, you start to know them really well. Unfortunately for me, at times, because I'm still working my way up, I end up getting to know some teams that aren't winning a whole lot of games. And those can be tough. But I tell people all the time, I don't care what the records are of the two teams. You treat that game like it's 2 undefeated teams playing for a national championship. And that's the way I focus on every week. How do I go in here armed with the most information, the best understanding of these two teams to present to the people at home what's happening on the field, why it's working, and why it's not working?
Love that. Yeah, super excited for you too. I always love when we get to hang out, when we get to talk college football. You've been over here to the house and watched some college football here. Ricky's been here
Yeah, we
when you were
watched your
here.
Titans that day when I first
That's
met
it.
Reggie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Hold on, Chad. I'm not going to let you slide that by. Been over to the house. I've been to the palatial estate. Yes. You're not going to play this game on here. Nope.
the estate, whatever. You
Been
got to
to the
go.
palatial estate.
Okay, well then you got to go to Ricky's house and Justice house over here with the Hendrick money and the
You've never
Sony
even
money.
been to my house. How can you say stuff like that? We've talked about this. You've never even come to my house.
Yeah,
yet.
but
I
then
could
he,
live in a fucking boxcar. You
Right.
don't know.
right, as he walks through his garage on his laptop with his freaking cars that are sitting out there from
You're mumbling and stumbling a little bit there, Lyris.
he did a
So I'm
whole
gonna say this, Joe.
podcast out there in his Smokey and the Bandit car that's sitting in his garage.
Well, I'm gonna say this, Chad. You gave me a great introduction. You did. It was awesome. You forgot one title. I am a certified pot stirrer, and I've done it just again.
Listen, it doesn't take much on this show.
That's true.
All right.
That is true.
Stir it up, baby.
Let me ask this to my guys. Ricky, Chris, do you have questions for Reggie before we move on and talk college football in general?
Yes, I got some questions here.
Roll with it.
We do.
As a football guy, shout out to playing at Penn State. As a D1 guy myself, I understand what it takes to be a student athlete. But let's go back. High school, 9th grade, grew up on the West Coast, learned to play in the 9th grade. So 9th and 10th grade using the learning curve on the West Coast. Moving to the East Coast is something I always wondered. Are there any major differences in how football is played from the West to the East?
Yeah. That's a great question. What I noticed on the West Coast, you had a lot more aggressive downfield pass concepts. Mainly one of them, right? It's a lot more open of a game. Mm-hmm. It's a little more free. Everything's about movement and athletes and stretching the field and those kind of things. You get to the East Coast, certain places you got weather to deal with.
Right.
There's still passing game involved, but what I noticed right away was there's a lot more quick passing game.
Correct.
A lot more, and it's funny because you hear West Coast offense was a lot more the short, quick passing game. Right. I saw that at the high school level more on the East Coast. It was quick game. It was a lot more two-back stuff, a lot more physicality, and then playing the quick game. So it was certainly a much more of a phone booth kind of game. And I'm not suggesting the guys on the West Coast don't do that. But that's not generally the forte as much as it is for a lot more guys on the East Coast. Obviously didn't play in Florida, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's like saying you played in Texas, right? Florida and Texas have their own jam. Like
they have their own, right. But the West Coast to the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic kind of difference was certainly much more of the physicality, much more phone booth kind of football is what I would say. The big difference was. Gotcha.
I always wondered that, growing up an East Coast guy, obviously they got good ballers over there. And you wonder, is it just because they got great weather all the time, whether the athleticism is so defined versus us on the East Coast where, like you say, you have the weather. So our time is, obviously changed, right? So you can't get all of that good outdoor weather in November, right? It's cold. It's wet.
It's cold, wet. You got winds. You got different things.
Right.
you have to adapt to. Whereas out there, and I think the other thing is it's so much more like I had never heard of out there. They have something, at least back then they called it passing league. We all know it as 7-on-7 now,
Right.
but back then they'd have passing league tournaments that were just, I mean, these monstrous 64 team whatevers over a 3-day weekend in Southern California. And
Wow.
it's, I mean, there's just dudes and they're out there running routes and just embarrassing guys. But you
Wow.
learn really fast how to play in space. You learn really fast. You got to adjust the route combinations and figure things out. And it's really fast. I mean, and so, you think about that and you don't see that. You didn't see that as much on the East Coast,
No, you
at
did
least
not.
in that time.
Correct.
It's becoming more and more prevalent now. Everybody's kind of doing it, and the spring ball stuff and all that. But it was a thing on the West Coast.
Gotcha. So I left college in '01. So, you know, late 90s was my era in the ACC, right? So, you saw a lot of that open playbook kind of thing with the Florida States, where Georgia Tech was old school option football, run it down your
Mm-hmm.
throat, right?
Yep.
So you didn't get it, you know what I mean? So,
Reggie Ball, Joe Hamilton. Yep.
yes,
Oh
Joe
yeah.
Hamilton, yeah, yeah, yeah. Eat your alive right there. So being that, and I was a weight guy, so Coach Caldwell was my head coach for my career. He was another man with a lot of detail, right? There's a lot of things we had to do as young men that I didn't quite understand as a collegiate athlete.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult, it all makes sense, right? And you mentioned a lot of things that Coach Paterno delivered and instilled in you guys as players. So I'm assuming a lot of that he instilled has transferred over into your broadcasting and things you present and how you pay attention to the details in that, correct?
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
and it's funny you mentioned Coach Caldwell because we're kind of cut from the same cloth. Coach Caldwell, for those that don't know, at one point was an assistant coach at Penn State.
correct.
So there is a little bit of lineage there. There's a little connectivity there.
Good deal.
Yeah. I think I've said this, ad nauseum throughout my life. And I just think oftentimes as young people, yes, our parents are an authority for us, but that's the thing. They're an authority. And so sometimes your parents can say things to you and you kind of hear it.
You
But
shrug it
when the
off.
person, right, but when a coach or a mentor or like this other person kind of unsolicited says the same thing as your parent might have,
Hmm.
for some reason you receive it.
Correct.
And I think it's because they're not, right, quote unquote, in your mind an authority. They're just a person and it's a little bit of advice.
Right.
Whereas with your parents, it's like a rule. And like, it's almost like we have this like natural, like, I'm kind of not going to listen rebellion. But if it comes from that outside person, it's amazing
How you
to me
retain
how
it.
that works. And that's something that I've always noticed. I mean, I
Hmm.
would I would have stretches. I had a great mentor, have a great mentor. And I would get frustrated sometimes in high school and call him and be like, man, my mom's tripping, blah, blah. He's like, I'm gonna pick you up. And we go sit there at IHOP and he's like, what? And it was always IHOP. And he'd be like, I just want pancakes. I'm like, why are you eating pancakes at 3 o'clock and whatever? And and I'd sit there and tell him, well, I did this, this, and this, and my mom said this, this, and this. And he goes, okay, so why are you mad? And I'm like, because she's treating me. And he's like, no, she's trying to teach you how to not ruin your life. She's trying to
Hmm.
teach you to not make mistakes. And I'd sit there and be like, all right, you're right. And he's saying the same thing my mom said. I
Yep.
just didn't want to hear it from her because that was my authority in the moment. Those kinds of people in someone's life, I think, are very, very important. And so I've tried to make sure with younger people than I, when those opportunities present themselves, that I properly talk to them and in most cases reinforce, right, what they
Right.
already know or what they've already been told, but maybe give them a little more perspective of your parents not just being mean. They're actually teaching you for this, this, and this reason.
Yeah, they're
And I
trying to
think
prevent you
that's
from making
important.
mistakes they made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they're teaching you from experience, but us as younger people sometimes it's the natural rebellion, and the pushback, right? Like we can probably all think of a time in our life where someone came to us with something and we're like, man, I'm not doing that. And it's because they're trying to make you do it in the moment. And then you look up 2 or 3 years later or 10 years, whatever, and you do it every day.
Every single day.
But if you go back to that moment, you're like, man, why did I tell Chad something was wrong with him for telling me I should tie my shoes instead of not tying them or whatever the case might be, right?
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, whatever that thing was that Chad was telling me 10 years, I do it every day.
It's crazy. We had this thing in Wake called breakfast check, right? So regardless of what time you had class, you had to make sure you was in the caf by 8:30.
We had the same thing.
Present. You had to show up.
You
be
had
present.
to show up for breakfast.
You had to show up.
Had to show up.
Hated it. Now you're like, time is everything. And being on time is the most important.
Absolutely. And don't waste somebody else's time.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's a big thing is if you're, especially now, because we got communication devices, right? Everybody, you can send a text, hey, I'm running 5 minutes, whatever.
Yep.
I still laugh at the fact, like people, I talk to some of these college kids now, one of these college, and they're like, oh, we did this. And he texted me. And I'm like, we used to say, hey man, meet us at such and such at 8:30. And at 8:35, we were walking off. There was no way for you to catch up. You just hope you could get, like a lot of times it was to go to a party or whatever. And somebody had to connect to get in.
Right.
If you were late, you had to stand in line like everybody else. You didn't trust the plug, as they say. And that's the difference in then and now in terms of that with communication devices. So I always think that that's something that's interesting to me in the way that we were. And I don't look at it as a knock on young people, right? It was a different time with different technology. Listen, we just didn't have access to it, so you just had to be there on time.
Thank God we didn't have access to all this mess.
Yes, 100%.
Oh, I'm glad there were no camera phones.
Absolutely.
No, I'm good.
Yes. And I'm glad we had to wait till 9 o'clock when the shit was free to talk.
Right? We were of the era in which it was like somebody would call you at 7:30. You're like, what?
I'll call you back.
I was just call me at 9.
Yep, call you at 9.
and then you would make sure to wait until 9:01.
Make sure you was clear.
Because if that call started at 8:59,
you're using your minutes.
Yeah, you're using minutes.
Yeah, you're screwed.
And by the way, I'm just going to throw one of my best friends in college. This dude had a Nextel. I couldn't stand it.
Oh, dude, I loved my Nextel.
No, because he would call me. He would call me and let it ring and hang up. So I called him because they had free incoming calls. So he burning up my minutes and he ain't burning up his minutes. Nah, yeah. I wouldn't call him back. And he called me back like, yo, you supposed to call me back. I'm like, no, if you want to talk to me, you're going to use minutes like I'm using minutes. You better call me at 9.
That beep, dude, that beep was everything.
Oh, you got a chirp. Come on now.
Yeah, the beep.
That chirp was legendary.
And then you had the two-way pagers, man. Come on.
Oh,
the two-way, the Motorola's two-way.
The Motorola two-ways. What?
Yeah, come on.
The evolution of remember Blackberries, aka
Blackberries, they took over.
They took over. Those things were, man. Which, by the way, for people at home that don't know, not to be political at all here, the president of the United States still has a BlackBerry assigned to them. That is part of how they operate in life. I don't know if people know that, but
they it's still super encrypted.
It's very encrypted. Absolutely correct.
Yeah. That BBM, BlackBerry Messenger.
Yes.
Oh man,
that was on the lockdown.
That was money.
Yes.
That was iMessage before iMessage.
Ricky, did you use the BlackBerry Messenger in your days at Sony?
100%. For sure. And I had a Nextel flip phone when Nextel was a NASCAR sponsor, and it had the logo on it with the yellow and the checkered flag.
Yes, sir.
And everybody at Sony made fun of it. They're like, what the hell is that stupid looking phone? I'm like, it's cool, man. It's my sport. They're like, it don't look professional. I'm like, I don't care. I like it.
Doesn't matter. It's NASCAR, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
All right, Ricky, come with your questions.
All right, I got 3, right? Is that what you usually give me before you get mad?
You got all the questions you want.
No, you're like that parent that Reggie was talking about. Like, I don't want to listen to you, but then you wind up being right. It kind of pisses me off, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, that's tremendous.
So I was in Southern California from 2004 to 2020. I was well past my high school and college football stuff. But you have not said the name of this high school that you started off at for 2 years that you said was so talent laden. And I was like wondering if it was like a Mater Day or who was it out there?
No, no, I was in the Central Valley. I was at Lemoore High School, which was in the valley. It's Lemoore is about 7 miles. There's a major naval air station there, about 6 miles away from the high school.
So
So that's where
Central
I was at.
Valley, like
Central Valley,
Fresno,
Fresno,
Bakers. Oh, up
Fresno.
there. You were north.
Yeah, the middle of it is pretty much Fresno. The bottom of it's like Bakersfield. The
Yeah.
northern part of it's like I want to say Modesto, Madera, all that stuff up there,
Yeah.
up towards Sacramento.
Okay. So when we divided the state as far as Sony stuff, you couldn't say Southern California was Bakersfield and South
Yeah, yeah,
for
because
us.
you coming out of Bakersfield, that's kind of that area where you got to get ready to go and hit the grapevine
Correct.
to come out of the valley. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm picking up
Gotcha.
what you're putting out. Which, by the way, a lot of people don't know this. The Carr brothers are Bakersfield guys. Derek and David Carr came out of that Bakersfield area. Really, really good football players. Found their way to the NFL.
Didn't know that.
I don't know
Didn't
why I
either.
know that, but I just kind of know that.
All right, I'm using my second lifeline, Chad. You mentioned ESPN and being relentless in your pursuit post Penn State football days. We're throwing out, applying. How long would you say that process was?
About a year and yeah, about a year.
Really?
Yeah,
You didn't give
it
yourself
was.
credit for that. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot of the grind and the fight. And the cool thing was, like, you guys will love this. I was actually living in Charlotte at the time, and I was, for lack of a better term, my resume should have been impeccable because I was slinging resumes. I was working in the world of recruiting. I was in staff recruiting, and I should have been great with the resume. Shouldn't have taken me any time to get an interview, but apparently I didn't know how to write my own resume as well as I knew how to help other people get their resumes in front of managers. I don't know how that happened, but it is what it is.
Oh, so you were doing staffing like that to for a company that was filling a need at like industrial or office or
Yeah, it was industrial stuff. It was offices.
yeah.
At that time, and this is actually an interesting conversation. At that time, Charlotte was really growing fast. Like it's crazy now, but there was a lot of construction happening. Like prime example, some people may not know this, but there's a clinic hospital type right off of Kenilworth. Before you get to the big hospital, if you're going north, there's on the left hand side, there's like a small medical facility there. One of the things that we did, one of the projects we helped with was all of the people that put in all the telecom there. Many of those people was my staff, were my contractors that we put into that building. So sometimes I drive past there and I just kind of look at it and laugh because I'm like, I kind of had a hand in building
I
that
helped
place.
build it.
Yeah, help
I
build
helped
it.
build that bitch.
And the cool thing was like, you do something like that and you're moving resumes around. But Friday was awesome because they got paid by us. And a lot of people got paper checks. This is early 2000s. On Fridays, I would leave the office because we'd get checks early. And I would just drive around to my contractors, check on them on the job sites, and hand them a paycheck.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
I'm going to
good
tell you something right
connection.
now.
That's a good
You,
connection.
you want some people to like you, show up every week with their paycheck.
Yep.
You're going to be all right by them.
And you got paid on the placements, right?
I got paid on the placements.
That's
and
how that worked. Yeah, my buddy worked for one in Cleveland. It's called Tech Aid, and that's exactly what he did. That's interesting. All right, I'm down to one,
so
Chad.
much
I'm down to
about
one.
people. Yeah. Don't worry about Chad. You can ask 10 more.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. See, that's when I have a parent that like knocks me down, and then I have an uncle, like Uncle Reggie's like, fuck Chad, man. You can ask me questions you want. Fuck, I'm talking about. No, so this is a good one.
Status though.
So you're pursuing your passion, and right now you are analyst announcing for the American, and I didn't know that it was just the American now. So if I was to ask you, because you said you go, oh yeah, someday I wish I could announce the Iron Bowl, or hey, maybe the Big Ten championship this weekend coming up that Ohio State's playing in. But again, I get ahead of myself. What do you think is holding Reggie back from attaining that goal? And I'm going to answer first because I'm uneducated to this, but what I think I see, and I love that you work for College Game Day because I think that concept and who they are, but it's like, can Reggie or Rick or Chris Justice or Chad get on College Game Day? No, because we're not a brand. You tell me what you think holds you back from that.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. There's some truth to that. I think there is a branding piece of it. I think there is also like a lot of it is reputation, right? And I've had people be very honest with me in this space from different places. They go, look, man, you are good on the air. But if RG3 calls, he's a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right?
And here's the thing. I respect it, which is why I tell people all the time, I don't expect to be Kirk Herbstreit. I just want to work every week.
Yeah.
That's my thing. If I'm doing a game every week, guys, it doesn't matter to me who it is. It does not matter. I've done the last game of the regular season with two teams that are 3-8. And you know what? Somebody's watching that game because they care. Yep. So I'm going to try to be John Madden that day.
Yeah. Right.
And you're treating them, like you said, you're treating them like they're undefeated and it's a national championship. It's just the other side of the coin is, and again, I'm just a dreamer and I love College Game Day. The four of us could be as funny, as engaging, as knowledgeable, but we're not a brand.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I think the other piece of it, right? And you see it in other shows in different ilks. That show is such a machine because the buy-in, like those guys know Pat McAfee is off his rocker sometimes.
Oh my God, he's the best.
But they enjoy it because you know what they look at it and say? He's still making us better.
Right.
He's giving us a different angle. He's giving us a different perspective. Right? He's different than Coach Corso, which, by the way, shout out to Coach Corso. And again, I traveled with this group for 3 seasons.
Absolutely.
He is one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet. Always has time for people. And just being able to, at times, sit there and listen to him talk ball and talk the old days and what he did at Indiana and all those types of things.
And how about how Herbstreit put his arm around him and became like his consigliere and his
absolutely.
That shows you something, right?
I'm going to speak for Herbie when I say this. And I hope he doesn't get upset with me for saying this. He loves college football so much that I think even at times he feels like he has to protect it. He is a true steward of the sport.
Without a doubt.
And I think because he loves it so much, he's very opinionated, he's knowledgeable. And I think sometimes people try to go after him because he's such a defender of the sport, but it's because he loves the game and he loves what it can do for people and galvanize not only fan bases, but create different and better lives for the players after they play, all these different things. Yeah. Nobody that I've come across loves it the way he does. And so, you know, I've always said, you know, people can say what they want. I've been in the same room. I've sat on the bus with him watching games all day before he went up to the booth to do the primetime game. That guy loves football and he's a junkie for it. And so, you know, I can't say enough good things about him.
That's outstanding. I mean, it shows on the show too, the way that the broadcast flows, the information they put in or put out for that matter, the way those guys carry on with each other, the way they feed off each other, the way that it's just the dynamic of it all, it works.
And Reese Davis is an absolute, that guy is a maestro.
Yes.
In leading.
He's like a traffic cop. Yeah.
He's
perfect.
So good. He's so good because he's not, I've asked him this before and he just kind of laughed at me. I said, Reese, man, you got a memory like a steel trapper. How do you remember all these details? And he just kind of laughed and said, I don't really know. And I think he's lying. I think he knows how. He's just not going to give away the secret. But I love Reese.
Right.
Great
Yeah.
dude.
Trade
Love Reese
secret
Davis.
on lock right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Love Reese Davis.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get your opinion on some things college football. How about that? Let's get the expert advice or expert analysis, I should say,
Great.
from our guy Reggie Walker
So
Jr.
excited.
So the first kind of piece I want to talk about is this crazy coaching carousel. And I've never seen anything like this. And we're going to get to that part on the end. The first piece I want to talk about, there are still some coaching vacancies. There's a few left. So I want to kind of run through some of those, and maybe you tell me who you see might be a good fit for those. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on these because there's a lot of things that I want to talk about. So, I mean, you feel free to go as long as you want to, but don't feel like you have to spend a ton of time. Um, but let's start with Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Coastal's an interesting situation. I'll say it this way, and I don't have any knowledge of this per se. Um, it wouldn't shock me if they tried to go get the guy that was there before in Jamie Chadwell. I know that they didn't. A lot of people didn't love losing him. He did a great job there. It wouldn't shock me if they tried to go after him. He's at Liberty right now,
Yeah.
and didn't have the greatest season. Didn't have a Jamie Chadwell like season this past year. But that's a name to potentially keep an eye on there. And then also I would look maybe at the FCS level, who's been really good at the FCS level that could go in there and take that thing to the next level.
Yeah. UAB Blazers after they got rid of Trent Dilfer.
Yeah,
A
UAB.
guy I like a lot, but did
Yeah.
not
So
did not fit well.
let me say this about Trent. Trent Dilfer obviously let go midseason, and I just had that football team in their last game of the regular season at Tulsa. They found a way to win with an interim head coach and some of the other things that have gone on there. Um, Trent Dilfer, Sean Salisbury, and probably Kevin Carter are probably the three reasons that I'm in a booth right now. In working with those guys in my production career, they always told me, "Hey, man, you can do what I'm doing. You know the game well enough." Tom Luganbill as well. Never leave Tom Luganbill out. Love that guy. Those four guys probably gave me the confidence in talking to them about football that made me believe I could go sit in a booth and do games. And so I had to get that in there. But that job is very interesting because of what's happened over this past year. And then you go back, what is it, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, they shut football down.
Yeah.
Then they brought it back. I think there's some infrastructure and resource issues there that they've got to get figured out. I think what they're going to have to probably do there is go get somebody that's coming from maybe the FCS level or a MAC type, somewhere with very limited resources that would be able to have more resources than they've ever had by taking a job at UAB. I think that's going to be the key is they've got to get somebody who hasn't had as much as they have so that it would be appreciated what they do have and they can find a way to win that way.
What about Cal?
Cal's interesting. You've got a GM in Ron Rivera who comes from the NFL, who's got that long NFL history. Where does he go? Is he looking for, what type of offense is he looking for? Pro style, those types of things. I think that's going to matter. I think the other thing is at a place like Cal, it's not a money thing per se, because you've got some big money donors per se out there that you can get money from. What kind of kids can you get into school there? That's a very difficult place academically to get kids into, and that's going to be a factor there. Can you get a few of the Jimmies and the Joes, as it were, in the school there that can help that football program? I think JKS, the quarterback they've got there now, is unbelievable. Lefty who can absolutely spin it, and that's a good starting point. So now they got to go get some weapons, and they got to add to that defense to get better. But I think Ron Rivera is going to have a plan there. Be very curious where he goes. I think he's going to go with somebody much more of that pro style kind of ilk.
Well, I mean, if anybody has laid out the playbook for them, Vanderbilt seems to have done that in far as how you can get kids into the school and build a successful team. So,
well, I think that's a big major player right now across all the levels, though, right? Getting those kids in, especially with the portal and how that thing is running. And that's why you see the success of the SMUs and these schools you haven't heard about in God knows how long.
well,
Right
but
now
you
they
still
got.
have the academic standards.
But I'm saying,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
once you figure out how to
where you
get
go.
them in there,
yeah.
Well,
now you can
that's
go
where
get those guys, right?
right. I love that you said that because I think that's where the cheat code is. If you're a place like Vanderbilt or even a Cal or a Stanford, one of the things you can lean into is say, you know what? I don't want the sophomore. I'm gonna go get all the grad transfers. I don't care where you went before.
Right.
You've graduated. Now you can get a master's from Cal. You can get a master's from Stanford. You can get a master's from Vanderbilt. Can you imagine going to, I'm going to make this up, Texas Tech, you get your economics undergrad. Then you go get an MBA from Vanderbilt.
That's a cheat code like no other.
And that's what a lot of these schools should and are selling, particularly a place like Vanderbilt. You get a guy like Pavier in there who's already graduated. That's house money. He's in grad school.
But what's the quarterback right now?
The other thing about grad school is some of that you can do online.
Right.
Some of these guys are doing grad school online at these places, and they don't have to set foot in a classroom too. So there's and oh, by the way, when you talk about, because people don't realize this, a scholarship, the athletic department still has to pay the school. I don't think people realize that. Well, it's a lot cheaper to pay for a postgraduate degree than undergrad.
I was watching Saturday. You had a kid out there. I can't remember where he was at, but he graduated 3 years from Harvard.
Yeah.
Transferred for Harvard somewhere balling now,
Mm-hmm.
right? To your point. You know what I mean? He's got his undergrad from Harvard. Check.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, and I'm going to shout out our friend here, Chad, because his jersey's over your shoulder. Kevin Carter. His son Zion went to Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Played at Dartmouth for 4 years and then went and I think he got his MBA at Buffalo. Played his 5th year at Buffalo. Like, those are the kids if a kid can graduate from an Ivy League school in 4 years, because remember, there's no redshirting there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And they only get 4 years of eligibility. You go get a kid to come play his 5th year for you after he's graduated from an Ivy League school. There's several things you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about him academically. You don't have to worry about him socially. You don't have to worry about him legally.
Right.
Just come play football. Right. And oh, by the way, the classroom is going to be a lot easier in most places than it is at Dartmouth or Harvard or Yale or Princeton.
Right.
Shout out to Mike Newman, who's a high school coach in the Charlotte area at Weddington. His son played his undergrad ball at, I believe, Princeton, and now he's playing at Monmouth to finish out his eligibility. So another one of those scenarios.
All right, let's talk about the two biggest jobs, at least in my opinion, that are still open. The newest one being Kentucky. What do you feel about that? What do you think's going to happen there?
They got to decide who they want to be. I think that's the biggest thing. Listen, Kentucky, they don't have a ton of that kind of talent, SEC talent in their state to keep it home. They've got to live in the portal a little bit. They've got to live in the who wants to come play in the SEC. I think they've got to set their expectations. I think they've got to understand who they want to be. Do you think you're supposed to be playing for national championships? No, because that's not who you ever have been. But can you be a program that's a 6, 7, 8 win program on a consistent basis? I think they can be that. I think that's what they need to be talking to and talking about, right, for their program. And I'm not, for some people listening, they go, well, why shouldn't they, subscribe to trying to play for national championships? It ain't a reality. There's a reason they've never done it before. Let's just call it what it is, right? And I think that's the big issue we're having in college athletics right now. There's some identity problems with some of these programs, some of these athletic departments, and they think they are more than who they are. And from a resource standpoint, they don't stack up, and that's where they're having the issues. I think Kentucky is one of those. They have some good issues. Let's call it what it is. Kentucky football will never matter more than what happens at Rupp Arena. Never.
Absolutely.
So they have to understand that and accept that, lean into that, and say, you know what, we just want to put a product on the field like Coach Stoops has done for the last however many years he's been there, that's competitive every week, or at least most weeks, and has a chance to play in the postseason every year, even if it's going to the Liberty Bowl or the Music City Bowl or whatever it might be. that sometimes is just who your program is.
Yep.
And going bowling is very important. Let us not mistake that, right? Like, to your point, not every university is going to be a top 5 contender, right? So getting those postseason bowl games is definitely a program boost in your recruiting efforts, right? You're going to get that kid that's on the fence, right? You kind of lure him in with you going bowling.
Absolutely. And oh, by the way, you get 15 extra practices with guys to figure out who can help you the next year and who can't. And then you can make those roster decisions after that as well. So all of those things help build programs and help sustain the success or in some cases, the lack of success in what you're trying to build.
All right. Tell me who is going to be the next head coach for the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Last thing I've seen and heard is apparently the focus is on Kalani Sitake. I will tell you that is a wild card for me. That's not a name I suspected. I don't know a ton about Kalani Sitake. I've never met the man. But what I do know is he has physical football teams that play downhill in the running game, and they will hit you in the mouth on defense. That's what Penn State needs, right? That's what I would love to see at Penn State. And so that's the name I've heard the latest. There were other names being bandied about. Listen, I know the current interim head coach, Terry Smith. I know him personally. One of the greatest people in probably, outside of Coach Paterno, obviously James Franklin did an excellent job, but a great steward for Penn State football. So I'm a big Terry Smith guy. I think this is going to be very interesting because of the conversations that we heard from the athletic director, Pat Kraft, when he fired James Franklin. He talked about championships and those types of things, national championships and conference championships. Listen, BYU's been in the mix the last couple of years. It's not like they've got a ton of Big 12 championships on the mantle in college football. Now, do they have national championships from back in the day? Yes. Kalani Sitake was not the coach. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I'm going off of what Pat Kraft talked about. So it'll be very interesting to watch how that plays out. But I think Kalani Sitake could be a great fit. I don't know him at all. But he's worked through, you've got to work through some things at a place like BYU. You've got players going on missions. They leave after 1 year or 2 years and come back. And there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle. He goes to a place like Penn State. The academic standards are a little bit different. The mission part of it with some of the players, you're not going to see that as much. He clearly already has a connection to the Polynesian community, so he can add that to a recruiting base for a place like Penn State. A lot of those things fall into place. So I'd be very interested to see if he does end up being the name Kalani Sitake that takes Penn State. I'll be very interested to see what the future looks like with him at the helm. And I can tell you this, much to the chagrin of some, I don't know how I would do it because it's probably going to be real cold, but I would probably try to find a way to get to that introductory press conference and get a chance to shake hands with that man, because I have a ton of respect for what he's done and how he's built programs and how he's sustained that level of success at BYU.
Yeah. So College Game Day on Saturday, Nick Saban threw out Brian Daboll for that job. What's your thoughts on that?
Hard pass. Look, and maybe this is unfair, right? Josh Allen was good with Brian Daboll, won an MVP without him. Okay. Daniel Jones was a little bit of a mess before Brian Daboll, had a good year and some change, and then fell off a cliff. And now look how well he's playing in Indianapolis.
Looks a lot better right now.
So, look, and I'm not trying to take shots at Brian Daboll, but it's not been proven to me. Now, would he probably know how to run a college program really well? Yeah, he spent some time under Nick Saban. Absolutely. And Nick Saban should endorse a guy like that. But I don't know if he's being a head coach in the NFL, very different than being a head coach in college football.
Sure.
And as much as people talk about college coaches not having success going to the pros, it ain't a whole lot of them that come from the pros and have success in college either. Let's just call a spade a spade. It is hard to do because there's so many different
Patricia.
Yeah, look at Belichick.
Right. It's just hard to do. And I think sometimes that people forget the differences. Look, Belichick's finding out right now I know football, but how well can I get it with 18 to 22-year-olds, some of which are just really good athletes that don't really have the right kind of foundation to
Right.
learn the systems that I'm trying to put in place.
Right.
That's just a fact. I'm not taking shots at any of these players. That's a reality of how it works. You see some of these offenses and defenses at the high school level. I call it with, like on defense, like some schools just play cat coverage in high school. You got that cat, you got that cat, you got that cat, I got that cat.
Line
And
them up.
it's because I got better athletes.
Right.
Well, you get to college, everybody's got great athletes. You can't play cat coverage all the time because that cat's going to beat you at some point. So you got to come up with things and you got to learn how to play within a system.
Yeah. Uh, one thought that I had, and obviously I'm not a Penn State guy, and obviously nobody's calling me, but why would Penn State not explore going to bring Bill O'Brien back?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's a twofold thing. I think one, and probably first and foremost, I'm not going to say he left in a bad way, but I know that Bill ran things a little bit different, and it was right after Coach Paterno.
Right.
And I'll say that, and I know Bill. I did some TV with Bill while he was at Penn State. We had him come down to Charlotte, do some breakdown stuff for us when I was producing Film Room. It was great. He's great. But I know that some people were a little bit bothered by how closed the program became, even to some former players under Bill O'Brien, because he comes from that school of the NFL. I think if he came back, he would do it probably a little bit differently now. But I think that's part of the reason, maybe not to go back to that well. And then I think Bill kind of took a hit reputation wise from a personnel standpoint with everything that happened with, I think it was DeAndre Hopkins down with the Texans in that trade. He kind of, the GM role, he was great as a coach. He kind of got the GM and coach role, and the GM part didn't mesh as well with the coach part. And I think that's probably scared some people away from him as well.
Yeah, it seems like he's done with what he has, a pretty good job at Boston College, though.
Yeah, he's done a solid job. And listen, that's a job that even in its heyday, it was an 8-9 win program. It's not like it was always playing for national championships. Doug Flutie years excluded, right?
Right.
But that has not always been the most quote unquote dominant program in college football. I think the ACC construct where they are now isn't helping. I think they were better fit for the old Big East, if you will.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to run down a list of coaching hires. You give me your grade for these hires and then tell me what you think here. UCLA hires Bob Chesney.
I'll give that a B plus. I don't know a lot about Bob Chesney, but he's had a history of winning, obviously, and now the problem he's going to have to face is, can he get people in LA to care again? That's not the easiest thing to do. I know Bob, if I remember right, he is a Pennsylvania guy. And I think he played or went to school at Dickinson College, which is in PA. So it's a different part of the world for him. That doesn't mean he can't have success. The guy's won everywhere he's been. And what I do like about him is everywhere he's been, he's gotten more resources, right? So you think about his history. I think he was coaching football at Johns Hopkins, right? Which most people don't know they have football. Then he found his way eventually to a place like Holy Cross, and obviously now at JMU. So he's had success everywhere he's been with lesser. Now he's going to have the most resources probably that he's ever had in UCLA. I think the first thing he better do is have a nice long sit down with Tim Skipper and figure out what magic Tim Skipper found and how to keep those kids motivated even after everything that happened this year.
Yep. Jamarcus Shepard goes to Oregon State.
I don't know a ton. I just know that Corvallis is a very difficult place to recruit kids to have consistency there. We've seen some guys. I think Mike Riley was the only guy that I think he had 2 stints there where he had some success. That's not an easy place to win. You're in the shadow of Oregon. Sure. Yes. Do you have some Nike help? Yeah, you do, but it ain't like what they see down there in Eugene. So
right.
Difficult place. I think he's going to have to really work the portal right. It's going to have to be more of a, let me get some guys that maybe on paper don't flash, but together they're a collective unit, and we can have some success.
Jim Mora at Colorado State.
I love that hire. Listen, when Jim Mora took over UConn after Randy Etzel's second stint, there was some concern about could they ever get back over 500 on a regular basis. They didn't have a conference affiliation to help them in terms of finances and the media rights stuff. There was a lot of hurdles to climb, right? If anybody's ever been to Stores, yeah, Gamble Pavilion is nice on campus, the basketball arena. They play their football games about 25 miles away in East Hartford at Rentschler. Well, it used to be Rentschler Field. I don't know what it's called now. The atmosphere sometimes can be sleepy. It gets cold up there pretty early in the year. Hard to have a consistent groundswell of fans there as well. Jim Moore did an excellent job. He knows how to coach football. I think he'll get Colorado State back to being a postseason bowl-eligible team, 8+ wins a year on a consistent basis. I love that hire. I give that one an A-.
Eric Morris, Oklahoma State.
They're going to be fun. I love that hire there. I'll give that one an A- as well. I love the hire there. They're going to score a ton of points. They're going to be exciting. The question is, how much more, may he rest in peace, T. Boone Pickens money is still floating around there in Stillwater. Listen, that's a great environment. When they're good, it is a fun place to watch a football game. I was there for Bedlam back in the day, and it was tremendous. That place can be really, really good. And Coach Morris is going to score some points. And I expect, and I hate to say this, but Mr. Mestamaker, the way he's been spinning the football, kid that didn't play varsity football in high school, starting quarterback at North Texas, if he goes with his coach, they will instantly be fun to watch on offense. I love that hire, A-.
Virginia Tech, James Franklin.
That's a home run hire. I think that's an A hire as well. Look, maybe I'm wrong, but I've talked to enough Virginia Tech people. I know plenty of them. And I said, hey, what are you looking for? And they say, look, we want to be in the mix every year. We should be a 9+ win team, and we want to be relevant every year. James Franklin will absolutely do that. So I think that is a perfect hire. They are in great shape. And oh, by the way, and this is what should scare a lot of people. James Franklin made a lot of hay recruiting the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, the DMV, as they say. All he did was go from 3 hours north to 4.5 hours south. All he did was flip sides of where he wants to recruit. And Northern Virginia, their largest, the largest alumni base for Virginia Tech is Northern Virginia. That's a home run hire. He's going to recruit the same areas, and he's going to dominate. And that's going to be a 9+ win team. And I'm going to tell you right now, put them back on Thursday night, bring back and let us see every Thursday night on ESPN. Let us see Virginia Tech make that walk from their locker room around the stadium and through that tunnel with the music playing.
Enter the Sandman. Come on.
Enter Sandman, best entrance in college football. Yes, I'm saying that with the whiteout behind me. The best entrance in college football. Virginia Tech, enter the Sandman at night, especially on a Thursday night.
Yeah, that's badass when they do that.
Not like
every time.
Every time.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Chris, I told you, I told Chad, I was lucky to see my first Virginia Tech game this last weekend because of our boy Kirby. He knew they weren't going to beat Miami, but he's like, Rick, he goes, see across there? He goes, what do you see? I'm like, I don't know, just like a lot of the fan base. He's like, nope. He goes, you see over 100 high school kids all down there in that lower section, all because of James Franklin.
Wow. Yes, sir.
Already.
Master recruit.
100.
Already.
He's like, we ain't going to get them all. He's like, but there's 100 here for no other reason than James Franklin. It's going to be interesting.
Absolutely correct.
All right. This next one, I'll say I'm a little perplexed by, but Pete Golding at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I thought they'd have. Listen, I respect Pete Golding. I'm going to give this hire a B-. I respect Pete Golding. This thing had been festering a long time with Lane Kiffin.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought the plan would have been more than elevating one of his coordinators.
Or if you're going to, why not Joe Judge, who has been a head coach?
Well, Joe Judge has been a head coach in the NFL.
Right.
There's a little bit of and that goes back to that conversation we had earlier.
Yeah,
I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
But I do. I'll say this again, and I got this is no disrespect to Pete Golding at all. But knowing that Lane Kiffin was probably walking out that door for the better part of 2 months.
Right.
And the only thing you could come up with is to make one of his coordinators or one of his assistants the permanent head coach immediately.
Right.
Is very interesting to me because I know Ole Miss has resources. They're not going to have to pay Lane Kiffin a buyout.
Right.
So it wasn't about
or his bonus, because LSU is going to cover his bonus.
Exactly. They don't have to do any of that.
Maybe it was player retention if they kept that coordinator there, right?
They might keep defensive players. You ain't keeping offensive players. So
I'm saying.
I will say this. Lane Kiffin is the best play caller in college football. Unequivocally, the best play caller in college football. The guy's unbelievable. I didn't say he was a great head coach. I say he's the best play caller.
Better than Chip Kelly.
Better than anybody in college football. I'll put him on top of anybody in college.
Yeah, maybe that move was to help retention, so cats wouldn't be walking out the locker room to follow him. You know what I mean?
I think you're right. I think that's a lot of it. Absolutely.
But could you have done that with the interim title? If you're going to do it?
No. And to be honest with you, I still don't think you're going to necessarily do it with him being a permanent head coach, because at the end of the day, these kids are going to take more money. 100%. And if LSU's got more money, they're going to make their way to Baton Rouge, which, by the way, Oxford is a great place to play and watch football on a Saturday afternoon. There ain't nothing like Baton Rouge at night.
It's like Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Nothing like Baton Rouge at night.
I
know I just said Virginia Tech is the best entrance in college football. There is no environment like Baton Rouge when they're good at night.
But that's two different elements. Intros and environment.
One is intro, one is when the game starts. You can defend both positions.
Absolutely.
That's fair. That's fair.
As far as Pete Golding goes, as an Alabama guy, we couldn't wait for him to go to Ole Miss. Like, go. So it's hard for me, I guess, to separate. We did not love our defense at Alabama under Pete Golding, even with Nick Saban as a head coach.
Well, here's the interesting thing about all of that, and I this is what's fascinating to me every year about the SEC. A year ago, they were sick of Lane Kiffin in Oxford, right? 18 months ago, whatever it was. And then he started kind of calling them out for not showing up or whatever, and it got worse. And then they look up and they go, wait, we're on our way to back-to-back 11-win season. Hey, we love Lane. And Lane's like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm gone.
So, it's an interesting and look, the funny thing to me is, right, like the folks in Tuscaloosa, they couldn't wait to get rid of Hugh Freeze years ago when he was at Ole Miss. Now they're mad that he's not at Auburn anymore. Because you could beat up on him at Auburn. Weren't beating him at Ole Miss. That's why he got the job at Auburn, because he was the one guy that could beat Nick Saban. And now everybody in the SEC is like, no, keep him at Auburn, because they're only going to win 5 games and we don't have to worry about him. Obviously, he's up out of there.
Yeah. Arkansas, Ryan Silverfield.
A little bit of a surprise. That's another one. You know what? That from the department of a transition, Chad, you are the best. A lot of people in Memphis want Silverfield out of there. They've wanted him out. They're going to get their wish. The scary part is, yes, he ended up 8-4 this year. He's been a 9-10 win coach. They better be careful. Because the Tommy West years are not that far removed in Memphis. That thing may go off a cliff real fast because they don't have the resources that people think. And oh, by the way, for Silverfield, he's going to have the most resources he's ever had. He's got the Walton money from Walmart. He's got the Tyson money now up there in Arkansas. He's going to have more resources than he's ever had. He's going to have access to players. The problem is, dude, what are you doing? You went to the SEC. Why are you going to the SEC? The money's good, but the ass whoopings are going to be abundant.
Well, it also feels like a guy that they just kind of went, well, we didn't get this choice or this choice or this choice. All right, let's just go with this guy and move on.
Well, because they knew they had to bring in somebody with a nice win-loss record, which he could fit that. But guys that have won national championships and that kind of thing, they know how hard it is to win at Arkansas because you got to play the Ole Misses, the LSU's,
Play an
now
SEC
Oklahoma
schedule.
and Texas.
Yeah.
You got to play an SEC schedule every year.
Yeah.
And now with no divisions, I'm going to tell you right now, I tell you who's not getting the benefit of the doubt in scheduling. It damn sure ain't Arkansas.
Florida Gators, John Summerall.
Great hire. It's going to take longer to fix than people think. People keep talking about proximity to players in Florida. That's great. You got to build via the portal now too. And I mean, now look, all the success Summerall had. I say that I'll give this hire a B. All the success Summerall has had. Tulane's not an easy place to get kids in either. A lot easier to get a kid in the University of Florida than it is to get a kid in Tulane. So I'll give him a ton of credit, give him an opportunity to build that thing back up. But I think that job is going to take a little bit longer. I don't think they gave Billy Napier enough time. And I think the DJ Lagway thing, the offseason injuries and stuff that he had to deal with and try to come back from really impacted the trajectory of their season. The schedule didn't help them either, and that cost Billy Napier his job.
Auburn, Alex Golesh.
Let me I'm going to give this one, and I know people are going to say he's sitting on the fence. I'm going to give this an incomplete, and here's why. I think Alex Golesh is an absolute phenomenal coach. I really do. And I think this is a guy that's got the pedigree to have a ton of success. I don't know if the SEC now was I'm worried about this move for timing purposes for Alex. I was one of those people when Penn State came open. I said I'd call Alex Golesh, but I wish this was 2 more years down the line. And I still think that way. The SEC, as you guys know, is a different animal. It's a different beast. Sometimes you got kids showing up that you didn't even know you recruited. Okay? Because a booster made sure they showed up, right? Like whatever. That's a different beast for Alex Golesh to tame. But at the same point in time, I think he's that good of a coach. It might be rocky at first so that he can get his sea legs, if you will. I think he'll eventually have success there. I think you got to be patient because I think this might be a year or two early for Alex Golesh at a job like that.
Yeah, the problem is Auburn has no patience whatsoever.
That's exactly my problem.
And the boosters run everything
Yes.
at Auburn. Boosters control the coach
Everything.
at Auburn.
Yep.
And if the boosters decide it's time to go, it's time to go.
I agree. You're absolutely right. And that's why this one scares me because I think the timing might just be wrong for Alex Golesh. Now, I hope that this thing takes off with him because, again, I think he's a great coach. I am high on him. His defensive coordinator, Todd Orlando, is phenomenal as well. They do a great job on both sides of the football. That football team, listen, I've seen pretty much every team in the American the last 2 years. When South Florida gets off the bus, that's different. They look different than anybody else in that league. They just look different.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. I think it's at this point a weird fit. I also kind of thought that I think number one, that John Summerall decided that it wasn't a place for him because of the stuff that, yeah, he's from Alabama, obviously, and he knows how it works at Auburn. So I think he decided, you know what, it's not worth taking my chance there. And so I think that's when they moved to Alex Golesh. But two, to me, I thought it was the better move for Auburn would have been to stay with DJ Durkin and see what he could have done and then come back to somebody like an Alex Golesh later.
I hear you. I think as we all, there's some things in DJ Durkin's past when he was at Maryland.
Right.
I think it's going to be hard for him to get past. And I think that's probably a lot of why that did not work out potentially for him down at Auburn.
And that's a fair point. I think he also, you saw a different Auburn team once he took over.
Great
versus
defensive
Hugh
mind.
Freeze. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a great defensive mind. He'll scheme it up all day. He wants to play physical, all the things. Like, I think he's a good coach. I just think there's a little bit of baggage that everybody hasn't fully gotten over yet.
Yeah. All right. LSU hires Lane Kiffin.
Wow.
I said
I was waiting on it.
I'm gonna give it a B plus, right? Whatever. He's the best play caller in college football. I'll give you that. He's going to have more resources likely than he had at Ole Miss.
But if somebody can step on his own junk,
it's that guy. And not to mention, well, let's add to it this too, because the governor said we're going to go out here, we're going to find a great coach, and we're going to pay him the right thing, but we're not going to get these big buyouts, and they're not going to be taking all this money. 80% buyout with a $91 million contract.
91 mil, bro.
Plus
Listen
what?
to this.
Plus
25
$25
million a year average.
Plus
Brian
25
Kelly,
million NIL.
Second in salary to Kirby Smart.
Brian Kelly is the one coach of their last, I think, 3 or 4 coaches that didn't win a national championship. They all got fired, except Saban. Saban went to the NFL. Everybody else got fired. Lane Kiffin.
Within like 2 years of winning a national championship.
Lane Kiffin might win a national championship in the next 3 years. I doubt it. He going to have the same fate. Because the one thing about Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss is a perfect example, he can wear thin on you when he's giving you the best seasons that your school has ever had.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that Lane cannot help himself but to become a pariah. He can't help himself. We just saw the documentary or the docuseries, and everybody's like, oh, Lane Kiffin has turned the corner. He's a better person. And 3 months later, we get this. I don't know how or why, but Lane Kiffin just has to do weird stuff. Yeah. He just does. And he wears thin everywhere he goes.
And I understand the lure of, hey, this is LSU or this is whatever, but your team at Ole Miss, and I understand what you're saying about Baton Rouge at night and Death Valley under the lights and all that stuff. But as you just laid out, you had 3 coaches who won national championships. Even if you go that, even if you win a national championship there, it's not like you're going to be remembered as part of history there, or you're going to be enshrined as he could have stayed at Ole Miss. He could have competed and maybe won a national championship at Ole Miss, because nobody works the transfer portal like Lane Kiffin. Nobody knows how to work a system better than Lane Kiffin. And he was competing against no ghost at Ole Miss. He already had done something at Ole Miss that had never been done. And he had a blank check at Ole Miss to do anything he wanted to do, with full run of the whole program, with full backing of whatever he wanted. They literally came out and said, we matched what LSU offered him.
Yes, to an extent they did. Let me educate the people. There was one thing they could never match, and that's the amount of years on the contract. The state of Mississippi has a law on the books. As a state employee, you cannot have a contract longer than 4 years. They can't change that for him.
Right.
So LSU knew the money is not the problem. We just got to give him more years than Ole Miss will give him.
Right.
So that's why they started with 6 years, because Ole Miss can't give him more than 4. Legally, they can't.
Wow. Didn't know
that. Is one thing that I think has not been talked about enough in this process. And Kiffin knew it. That's why he kept saying it's not about money. He was not lying. It wasn't about money. It was about contract length.
Well, it's also about ego when it comes to Lane Kiffin.
We could, yes. Um,
I fully believe him. It's not about money.
well, here's the other thing, and I think you guys would understand this and agree with it. The Ole Miss people know LSU's a great job and a great opportunity. Nobody's mad at the fact that he's leaving LSU or Ole Miss for LSU. It's the way he did it because Lane Kiffin can't do anything the right way,
right?
Except call damn plays.
Right.
He's great at calling ball plays. He can do that right, but the other stuff he just can't do right.
Yeah,
or at least in a way that makes people feel like he's filled with integrity.
Yep. All right, let's talk some championship games this Saturday, and then we'll let you, or this Friday and Saturday, and then we'll let you get out of here. You've spent the better part of 2 hours with us, so we appreciate your time. I know it's gone kind of long, but this is fun. I like talking college football. We talk a lot of NASCAR and a lot of stuff, but
boogity.
Yeah, we love some college football though. All right, so I'm gonna give you the game. You give me your pick.
Okay.
Conference USA, Kennesaw State versus Jacksonville State.
Give me Kennesaw State. I love what Jerry Mack's doing at Kennesaw State. I saw them play a couple of times this year. They're about as physical as you'll find. They can play up tempo or down tempo offensively. And like I said, physical. Defensively, they will beat you up. I like Kennesaw State. I like what he's doing in that program, Jerry Mack. And keep an eye on Kennesaw State, guys. It's just north of Atlanta, up in Kennesaw, different county, obviously, than inner city Atlanta. Plenty of players. And they've had success there, even at the FCS level with Coach Bohannon. I think he'll keep that going. Look out for Kennesaw State moving forward.
Not my Gamecocks.
No, sorry. Can't do it.
All right. Troy at James Madison.
I like JMU in this one. I just think they got more talent, regardless of the situation with Bob Chesney. Too much talent for JMU. They'll physically dominate that football game.
You're American. North Texas at Tulane.
Absolute shootout. 2 coaches on the way out. It seems like North Texas is trying to send messages on a regular basis. I think it'll be a shootout. It'll be something like, 41-34 or something like that. But I like North Texas getting a win on the road.
Also saw something today, speaking of coaches, that said that Coach O could be the next head coach at Tulane.
Okay. I'm going to leave that alone. I would love to see the Cajun back in the game, but I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
That's a different place. But he'll keep the talent at home.
Yeah. Mountain West, UNLV and Boise State.
I'm going to give a ton of credit to UNLV and what they're doing in their athletic department. 2 great hires in Dan Mullen on the football side, obviously. And then on the basketball side, Josh Pastner, rebuilding that thing in that athletic department. They got plenty of money going into it. The problem is it's cold as hell in Boise this time of year. Give me the Broncos at home.
All right. Going into Saturday, Mac Attack time. Miami of Ohio versus Western Michigan.
Give me the Broncos. I like them at home. And, actually, it's at Ford Field, but give me the Broncos. I think they'll play well. I like what they do defensively. They do an excellent job shutting people down. They'll slow this Miami offense down. Give me the Broncos.
All right, the Big 12 championship, BYU at Texas Tech.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting scenario. 11 o'clock kick there in Arlington. BYU, now they've got to deal with whether or not Kalani Sitake is going to be there. I think Texas Tech defensively, certainly from a talent standpoint, amongst the best 4 or 5 in the country. The way they're executing amongst the top 2 or 3 in the country. Coach McGuire's got that thing rolling. Give me Texas Tech.
All right, SEC championship time. Georgia at Alabama, obviously in the Georgia Dome. But
yeah, look,
Ty whatever Simpson, it is now. So not the Georgia
Mercedes-Benz
Stadium is one of the best stadiums on the planet.
Sorry,
tremendous.
Sorry,
you got that? It's actually almost as good as Jerry Jones' place.
Oh, here we go. I love which by the way, Arthur Blank's putting some more money into it. They're calling that thing Mercedes-Benz 2.0.
Yeah,
so keep an eye out for that coming forward.
Technological marvel. Go ahead.
Look, I love Georgia, Kirby Smart, what they've done. They've been battling their way through close games all season long. Alabama, very similar. They struggled in the running game. Ty Simpson's been absolutely phenomenal. There were some nonsense rumors about Kalen DeBoer leaving. I don't think that there's any truth to that. I think they're going to play really well in this game. The key to me is, can they run the football like they did against Auburn? Very different, Auburn and Georgia, obviously, teams-wise. I think if they're able to run the ball, Alabama wins. If they're not, Georgia wins. So I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. Give me Georgia unless Alabama can prove they can run the football.
Killing me.
Sorry, Chad.
You'll be okay, Bearden.
ACC. This one is an interesting matchup here because for the first time, potentially the ACC champion could be left out of the 12-team playoff. So you've
that's
got
what they asses get, because they should have never went away from divisions. They tried to be like everybody else and get away from divisions, and it's biting them in the behind because the tiebreaker setup is stupid.
So you went down to the 5th tiebreaker to put Duke in this game over Miami. So you've got Duke at Virginia.
Give me Virginia all day. And in a lot of ways, I think the league is hoping that happens, because the last thing they need is for that to happen, because it could cost Miami in a way too. But there's no reason that Duke should be in this game with the overall situation when Georgia Tech's at home, Pitt's at home, Miami's at home, and SMU's at home. I'm going to go Virginia. I love what Tony Elliott's done. Started his career there with a ton of adversity. I don't know if a lot of people remember that shooting and all the things that happened in the aftermath of that.
Correct.
How about Tony Elliott and what he's built there at Virginia with a chance to win an ACC championship?
All right. Number 1, number 2, the Big Ten championship. My guy Rick here is going to have the mullet slicked up, ready to go.
The flight's booked. The hotel room is booked. Come on.
Oh, man. He's
Indiana at Ohio State. Kirk Cignetti, Ryan Day. Here we go. Who's going to take home the Big Ten championship?
5.5 point line opens.
Look, I don't know about that number. I think that number might be a little high, but I like the Buckeyes for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't think they are playing tight anymore. Right? Ryan Day was considered a, quote, walking cadaver going into the playoffs last year in terms of his job security, because they had lost to Michigan. He won a national championship. He just slayed the giant, if you will, in Michigan this past week. They're playing much looser. I think having a young quarterback and just letting him distribute the ball to those weapons and the way they're playing defense right now, to me, I think they're just head and shoulders above everybody else. And the second reason is 4 words: Larry Johnson, Tony Johnson. Tony Johnson was my teammate at Penn State. His dad, Larry Johnson, was the defensive line coach at Penn State. He's the D-line coach at Ohio State. When the game gets late and a big play needs to happen for Ohio State on defense, you can go back and check it. Over the last decade, it's been that defensive front, which is led by Larry Johnson. I think they do it again. Fernando Mendoza, you better strap on your chin strap, young fella, because you're going to get some on the chin in this one.
All right. I like it. One last question, then we're going to let you go. Tell me, come January, who will be the national champion of the college football playoffs?
I just said all those good things about Ohio State, which as a Penn Stater hurts me to the core. But it's hard for me right now.
Still
the
Big
way they're
Ten.
playing.
Come on.
It is Big Ten. And I do love guys on that staff there. It's just hard for me to look past it. Now, I will say this. Before last week, I thought A&M would be a factor here. But I expect to see, depending on how the bracket plays out, if they meet each other sooner than the national championship game, I think the national championship is going to be either Ohio State or Notre Dame, whoever wins that game, depending on if they run into each other early.
Solid choice.
I think Marcus Freeman is done a tremendous job. They're going to get some home games. That's not a place you want to – South Bend and Columbus are not places you want to go play in late December. They're just not.
He's got the boys locked in.
Now, that being said, you're not going to probably play a road game in Columbus because they're going to get a bye. But you do not want to, in that first round, have to go to South Bend. It's going to be cold, nasty, and they're physical. And Jeremiah Love might be the best running back we've seen in 3 or 4 years.
What do you think the world would think about a repeat of last year's championship game?
I think the conversation. I think Ohio State's a big enough brand. It won't bother a ton of people. I think for some people they'll say, it's a good thing the SEC didn't win again, right? That conversation is there.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is the conversation about how much money they spent on the roster will be very loudly discussed, because that was the main conversation last year. And I'll say
how much Ohio State spent?
How much Ohio State spent, which
even though they're like number 5 and like every Texas team in the world now is spending oil money and they're all higher.
Well, that's the point, right? Is like the conversation is going to be one of two things. You don't have to spend the most to win a national championship,
right?
But you're still going to have to get to about 20 million, because that's what they were at.
That's fair. That's fair.
And but if you're Notre Dame, I think that number is a little bit less. I don't know for a fact, but I think that number might be a little bit less. If he wins, the conversation is you don't have to go as high as Ohio State did, because Notre Dame maybe won it with a little bit less of an expensive roster.
The highest NIL player, Chad. Reggie can't help you. Go.
I don't know.
Okay. Good.
Miami, guess. Carson.
Okay, Carson Beck.
Supreme
Court Justice. Do you know this answer?
I do not know.
I looked it up because so many people give me shit about NIL spending and Jeremiah Smith. And by the way, he's $4.2 million. He's not the highest. I think it's
Underwood at Michigan, isn't it?
I thought so too, Reggie. I thought Larry Ellison, who owns some fucking Hawaiian island, opened up his checkbook from Oracle and bought it. It is not.
Huh.
Who we got?
Arch Manning.
I was going to say Arch would be the other.
$7 million.
Yeah,
I was going to say that, but I didn't think he was that high. I thought he was like 4.
Either. I fact checked it a couple times because that's how I got the.
Is that straight NIL from Texas, or is that the side deals? Because he just did another big car dealership deal or something too. He makes a ton. I thought his was more of the away from Texas, like real endorsement stuff. But I could be wrong.
That I don't know.
But look, that guy gets more attention. He's the single reason Texas was in the top 5 to start the season this year, and had a Heisman campaign going and was completely unproven as a player.
I know we got to let him go, Chad, but the last 2 teams into the college football playoff, is one of them Texas with Arch Manning, who we just talked about?
Is one of them Texas? I think if so, that's going to mean that BYU definitely lost to Texas Tech, because they're going to need some help to get some teams pushed out of there. So they're going to need that to happen. They're probably going to need Georgia to beat Alabama as well. And because they're going to need some help to get themselves up in there. So I think they're going to need some help. It's certainly a possibility. Obviously, beating A&M is going to help. That'll probably put them somewhere around 11, because there's some teams that they're not going to be able to move past. So I'll be very interested to see when those rankings come out where they land.
Me too.
Because to go from 16, because you think about it, let's just look at 6 through 10. Oregon's not going anywhere. They're playing in the Big Ten championship game. Or actually, they're not. So they're at home. Ole Miss is at home. Oklahoma just had a nice win to end their season. Yep. They're at home. Notre Dame doesn't have a conference championship game either.
Miami's at home.
And then Alabama and Miami. And so the only place is BYU. And I don't even know that BYU's a lock sitting at number 11. So I'll be very interested to see what the committee does on Tuesday night and how that stacks up. Because, again, the conversation has been, don't punish teams for losing conference championship games.
That's right.
Well, if that's the case, this thing might already be locked up, because you're going to get a group of 5 team in, whether it's Tulane or North Texas, which, by the way, North Texas, I don't know how they're not ranked at 10-1 and the number 1 offense in the country. That doesn't make any sense.
Crazy, right? Crazy.
That's asinine. It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the committee already had Vanderbilt better than Texas. They've had Utah better than Texas. They've had Miami better than Texas. All 3 of those teams had success this past weekend. and Ohio State beat Michigan, which is the next team in front of Texas. So I don't see a whole lot of places to move up or move people down after having good games over the weekend.
It'll be interesting.
All right. Well, this was fun. This was much
great.
different than what we usually do, but it was a ton of fun to get to talk something outside of NASCAR. And our guest segments are usually, you know, a lot of story. And I'm glad that we got to talk your story. And thanks for sharing your story. And thanks for being open and transparent about your situation at Penn State, both while you're there and afterwards and all that stuff. I know that's a weird situation to be in, but I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking all the time with us and indulging all the questions and the banter and we appreciate it. And I think folks are going to enjoy it. If they want to check you out, where do they go find you?
Social media, Instagram R_walk13, Twitter R_walk13. All of those things are out there. Find me anywhere. Or at a game near you, which, by the way, I'm fired up, guys. December 17th, I'll be in Canyon, Texas for the National Junior College Athletic Association Division I National Championship game. So that should be fun. I'll be calling that one. Find us on ESPNU for that one.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
Congratulations. Keep it up. We got to get you back over to the house and watch some football over here as well.
Make some more food.
Yes.
Appreciate you guys.
Make some more food.
Make some more food.
Thank you, man.
I'll come back to the palatial estate. I appreciate you guys. And by the way, let me know when visitation or visiting hours are open at any NASCAR garage. I think it's fascinating what the folks in NASCAR do. I think some people that don't know about the sport, they're just like, oh man, they make four lefts. I'm like, if you know the technology and intelligence behind running around that racetrack in those cars and how fast they're going and some of the stuff that they're doing, I tell people all the time, I think it's fascinating that on a broadcast we get to listen to some of the communication between the driver and the pit and the crew chiefs and all that stuff. Like the intelligence and the understanding of the vehicle to me is amazing. So I think the world of the sport. I don't know it. I'm not overly well versed in it, but I certainly appreciate the technical aspects of what occurs in a general NASCAR race and what a race team does on a week-to-week basis. I certainly probably need to get to more races. I live in Charlotte, and the timing sometimes
we know
is not
some
great.
people that get Chad. I hope you're making a list of all these guests that we have that are expressing an interest, because between Justice and I, man, I'd love to make him a guest. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. And I do know this for a fact. Now I just drew a blank. He played at Penn State, but he's a member of a pit crew. Now I can't remember what race team he's with. It was in my head and I lost it. But I love the fact that NASCAR is doing that as well in terms of going and getting former athletes.
Tons of guys.
Yeah. Because
there's tons of guys and ladies out there.
Yeah. Because they understand that these people know what it means to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
And how to be accountable to their job.
Absolutely.
My biggest sort of moment introduction to NASCAR years ago when I lived here in Charlotte, went to the All-Star race, and somebody hooked us up, and we were pretty close to the pit crew challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It blew my mind watching people change tires and do all that stuff in a matter of seconds. It was unbelievable. The coordination is ridiculous. So shout out to you guys and everything you're doing with NASCAR, man. I think the sport deserves much more credit than it already gets.
We'll get you to a race for sure. No problems there.
I'm here for it.
All right, buddy. We appreciate you.
Thank you
so much.
Guys.
Reggie Walker on Checkers, Wreckers, and What the Heck.